is the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, good evening again. My name is Guy Cooper, Dr. Guy Cooper. I'm an MD. I won't baffle you with science, though I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training, so we are by far the stupidest of all of the MDs, so it should be kept fairly simple. Combat Medical, we are looking for 2.3 million to close out a 5 million investment round. So here's the problem. There is no innovation in the world's most expensive cancer. It's a big statement. The world's most expensive cancer is bladder cancer. Just a little bit about us. Unlike a lot of the companies that you will see in these sort of positions, that we're real, we're trading out there outside the US. We've done more than 100,000 procedures. We are in more than 30 countries. We turn over revenue. We turned over 4.3 million last year, and we made a good profit too. So we're a real company that exists. We have a number of clinical publications, more than 40. We have a very heavily patent protected product offering. You will see two boxes there. The little one is the bladder cancer box that we will talk mostly about, but we do also have something for abdominal tumors. So it has multiple applications in multiple cancers with a big market. And our FDA approval trial has now been launched and is recruiting in the UK and is the reason why we need some more money. You see here a gentleman being treated just in the outpatients department, in the walk-in department in the hospital. And you see, if we go to his bladder, that via our machine, we are putting heated chemotherapy directly into his bladder. He's awake, he doesn't have any anesthesia, any pain relief. It's a relatively comfortable procedure. We are delivering the drug directly and only to the affected organ, so there's low side effects and no systemic effects. And we do this through a patented aluminium heat exchanger that we own. We have global patents upon. This allows us to heat very precisely and allows us to keep the pressures very low as well. So it's tolerable for the patients. If it's tolerable for the patients, they're happy. So the nurses are happy. So it's a very user-friendly procedure that can be used with many drugs. So what does heating up the chemotherapy do? What does hypothermia do? Well, really, it makes the chemotherapy drug more effective. It improves drug penetration into the cancer cells. Those cells are largely a bag of fluid. If you heat them up, more drug will dissolve. It enhances the drug's ability to kill the tumor. The chemical reactions work faster. If you remember back to your classes at school, if you heated the reaction in the test tube, it worked faster, and it's exactly the same here. Cancer cells are very vulnerable to heat. Like a Englishman in, what do you say it is, 100 degrees plus in Austin today, Hall? Like an Englishman right there, we don't like the heat very much, and we start to sweat. Now, a healthy cell will just about manage 109 Fahrenheit. A tumoral cell will not. What especially happens is these tumoral cells give off a marker called a heat shock protein, and these act as a stimulant for your immune system. So you have a learned and remembered immune response. This is the reason why our recurrences are so much lower. Typically today, a patient has a small operation to remove the tumor, and then they have 3 years worth of immunotherapy put directly into the bladder, or maybe a year or two's worth of chemotherapy. However, 80% of these patients have recurrence, and around 50% of them recur in the first year. And this has been the situation for 30 years. Every time it recurs, you can, of course, have another small operation, another set of treatment. But if it gets worse, if it progresses, the only option is to have your bladder removed and a lifetime of incontinence care. For our patients, they start the same way. They're diagnosed and they have their tumors removed. But then they have 15 treatments of heated chemotherapy, as you saw the gentleman in the animation, much lower side effects, reduced recurrence rate, and a reduced progression rate. Progression is when something recurs but as a worse cancer. And if it doesn't come back worse, many more bladders are saved. Some clinical evidence. This is a study that we carried out in Europe. You see 174 patients. If we look at these guys at the top, these are the worst guys. These are the guys that the FDA are very interested in how they're treated. They have this flat lesion called carcinoma in situ. And after a year, around 70% of our patients are cancer-free. Now, is that good, bad, or indifferent? Well, let's see. This is another very similar study from the University of Cologne in Germany, where we were about 67% complete response at a year. And there's another couple of studies here that had very similar results, leading the global committee of bladder cancer experts to say that hypothermic mitomycin C, which is hypothermic chemotherapy, is recommended. What does this mean for patients? Well, if you use Hyvec from Combat, after a year, what did we say? 70% cancer-free, so 3 patients have cancer. The first drug approved by the FDA 2.5 years ago, Merck's Keytruda. After 3 months, 6 out of 10 of their patients have cancer again. So this means that after 12 weeks after the end of the treatment, only 4 out of 10 patients are cancer-free, and that was approved. That's the only used approved drug in the US. So you see Merck, their Keytruda business is quite reasonable. I would accept some of that at $29.5 billion globally. It's even worse at a year. They're less than 20% of their patients cancer-free, complete response at a year. Ferring have an offering, $500 million deal with a pharma company. They got it through. At a year, 24% without cancer. Immunity Bio launched on the Nasdaq last year with a market cap of $2.19 billion. 36% complete response. So only a third of their patients cancer-free at a year. CG Oncology launched last year on the Nasdaq. 1 drug, 1 product, $1.88 billion market cap. 46% complete response of a year. And J&J have a drug out there, a device out there that they're developing at the moment that they expect to do $5 billion a year in sales, with again 4.5 out of 10 patients cancer-free at a year. We are 7 out of 10 patients cancer-free at a year. A much, much, much better response than any of these huge companies. In the US, this is a market of around 10,000 patients a year who get 15 treatments at a point of around $4,000 per complete treatment, making a immediately serviceable market of 600 million in the US. And if we look at that globally, it's a 8, 10, 12 billion dollar market. In fact, some analysts have said that it could be a $21 billion market by 2034. This is our trial that's ongoing at the moment. The FDA were very kind to us and allowed us to do it in the UK, thus meaning it only costs 7 million instead of 700 million probably. We've made the first payments on it. We're recruiting patients in 30 hospitals in the UK today. We expect interim results in 2026 and a USA FDA approval in 2029. As I say, we're in 30 countries or more globally. We sell through a network of distributors who sell into urology, oncology, cancer medicine. And then we're direct. We have direct sales in our home market in the UK, where we're in 50 hospitals, and in Spain, which was another home market of ours, where we're in about the same. Roughly in the UK, $4,000 per complete treatment cycle for the patient. Of course, in the US, this is much bigger, $60,000. We sell or give away a relatively low-cost piece of capital equipment that you saw at the start, and then it's a razor blade model selling the consumables that go upon this. Margins are very high, 80% plus. Now distributors are able to get 50% margin as well, which they're very happy with. Mostly outside the US, we are a single-use kit business now, having placed an awful lot of capital systems over time that are depreciated off. And we partner with one of the largest component manufacturing and assembling companies in Europe, so we're able to expand quickly should we need to. And as we stand today, our sales will be projected to exceed 500 million by 2032. Management team is very experienced. a lot of financing and IPO cash sale experience. And our clinical advisory board has several US and Canadian surgeons upon it and is a global who's who of bladder cancer. So we've had our trial approved. We are raising money to pay for the second and third tranches of this trial now. We will recruit for 18 months. Expect interim data in 2026. Now, that data then is very valuable. The 3-month post-treatment data is valuable because this is so poorly treated. And this will leave us with a valuation inflection to around $1.5 billion as a company, according to our analysts. Investment to date, $17 million in a $38 million pre-money. So we have 2.7 of this round. We're looking for another 2.3. We expect that first inflection when we produce interim results at the end of next year, and then a bigger inflection in 29, and exit through trade sale, IPO, or build a global business ourselves. So the problem is that there's no innovation that's effective, affordable, and tolerable in the world's most expensive cancer. And we have the solution. Very high cancer-free rates, affordable, low side effects, many, many treatments done. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the presentation. Those in the audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. My first question is, you're operating in many countries today. It doesn't need US FDA for that. What kind of activity are you seeing there? How many patients are you seeing? What kind of revenue are you generating? Just what's going on there?
I have to be careful because our CFO's in the room, so any revenue projections that I give, she'll take as gospel. But we should do around $5 million US, $5.5 million US this year. We do around 3,000 treatments a month. A busy hospital up the road from me in the UK, we will do 10 treatments a month in the hospital, 15 maybe. So yeah, it's busy.
What's the ideal patient profile here? Who responds most or well to your treatment?
It'll be a patient that probably has failed primary therapy. 40 to 60% of patients who have immunotherapy, which is the first therapy, fail. Really, they should all have their bladders out at that stage. We come in at this stage and offer not a salvage therapy, but a very, very good therapy in a space that's huge at the moment. The amount of investment in this space by the big boys looking for a cure, in inverted commas here, is enormous, and our results are so much better than theirs.
So there's potentially many exit opportunities. Who do you think is the most likely that will buy your company, and why will they buy it?
Boston Scientific have already bought a company I worked for and fired me once, so I joked that would be the same again. They bought American Medical Systems. But somebody like Boston, Olympus, Johnson & Johnson, who we're already talking to a little bit, Boston we've spoken to. These are quite likely acquirers. I must admit the market caps on the two that have done IPOs on the Nasdaq are quite attractive at north of $2 billion as well, so we might go that route. But I think if J&J wrote us a check for, I don't know, I look at the CFO to see what color she goes, $500 million tomorrow, we'd probably take it, or $1 billion in 2-3 years' time, we'd probably take that.
Oh, great. And so what's novel about your therapeutic technology there? What really makes it stand out from the competition?
There's no competition in this space. There's a lot of very clever drugs. There's a lot of big sort of nasty systemic treatments for it. This is taking today's treatment and supercharging it. So the nurses can do it. It can be done in the hospitals exactly the same as today. They just do it hot instead of cold. Same drug, same dose, same patient, same number of times, same length of time, just hot instead of cold.
And how does it fit the physician? Is it requiring special training? Is it counter to what they normally do, or how well does it fit?
No, to use the system will take an hour to show the nurses how to do it. But to them, it's very intuitive. It looks like a sort of bladder lavage system to them, which is something they've used for hundreds of years. You show them how to do it and they do it. It's very important that the nurses need to be able to use it, because if they cannot use it, they will not use it and the product will die. This is very simple for the nurses to use. We don't support any cases really once the nurses are trained.
Great. Well, we're at our time. Thanks so much for a great presentation, and we'll look to see you in the breakout rooms.
Lovely. Cheers. Thanks all.
Good music. So with that, let's move to our next presenter, Doug Wilmore of Woltree. Doug, go ahead and launch your slides and kick off when ready. Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.